days, weeks, or months. I'm not sure what. It looks like maybe the U.S. dollar rally has run its course. I just decided yet, but we've had an artificial rally. People were covering their shorts, and it's going to come to an end. The U.S. dollars are very flawed currency, it and the pound sterling.
Your projection in terms of level, where do you see the U.S.?
Hassan, I'm not smart enough to know that.
Come on, Jim, you can do this.
You should watch Bloomberg. Every day on Bloomberg, there'll be at least 15 people who can tell you exactly when it's can tell you the exact number and exact day. I'm not smart enough. I just will try to get it right.
Give us a number, Jim.
My timing is always bad. Against which currency? I mean, even that's it's a very difficult question, because which currency are you talking about? Some currencies, the pound sterling is going to go down pretty badly against most currencies, but the dollar is too. So the dollar and the pound sterling may go down together. So this is a tricky world we live in. I will probably put my money into the yen, but I have no idea where I'll put my money.
You evaded the question, but never mind.
I'm not evading it. I don't have an answer.
Okay, Trish, go ahead with your question.
Okay, Jim, we had a lot of questions from our viewers actually about the sterling, like you mentioned just now, as well as the euro and the crosses against each other, and as well as the yen. And now we know all three central banks have been embarking on quantitative easing, with the BOE probably the most aggressive, and the ECB probably the least aggressive. Would you be actually putting the money based on the amount of central banks quantitative easing?
Well, I'd rather own the euro than the pound sterling, or even than the U.S. dollar. I still own some dollars, but the euro, the people running the central bank in Europe have done a much better job. I didn't say they've done a great job. They've just done a less bad job than the people running the Bank of England and the U.S. Federal Reserve. So yes, I'd rather be there. I'd rather be in the yen. I'd rather be in maybe some of the Asian currencies, or the Canadian dollar. There's some currencies which will probably do better or less badly.
Would you what's your outlook on commodity currencies that, like the Australian dollar, the Canadian dollar, like you mentioned just now, and even the rupiah, and because people are saying that the rupiah might be one of those that actually tag on to the China growth story and the commodity growth story?
When the rupiah, you mean the Indonesian rupiah? Whose rupiah are we talking about here?
Indonesian rupiah.
I understand. I'd rather own the commodity currencies than the others, all other things being equal. I do own the Canadian dollar and the Australian dollar and the Kiwi. I own these. They all have some flaws. They all have some problems. I do not own I do not own anything in Indonesia, just because I can never quite understand who or what they're doing down there. It's a wonderful country, but I don't own the currency.
In terms of the Indian rupee, the elections and so on and so forth, I mean, how do you expect the rupee to perform?
Well, I'm not a big fan. I'm a huge fan of India as far as the country is concerned, as far as a place to visit. But Indian politicians I don't want to put my money with them. You put your money there, I'll put my money. It's hard enough finding a place where the people are working for you, not against you.
Okay, just one more question before we let you go for this particular segment. A question from our viewer. Is the Japanese yen a single currency to buy? And the pound and the euro to sell?
The pound and the euro, the pound I would certainly sell if I owned it. The euro I'm not selling. I do own it, and I do own the yen. Whether I'd buy it today, I don't know, but I'm certainly not selling my yen. I expect the carry trade to continue to unwind, and I continue to own the yen.
Now, you rode your bike all over China. You know, there is a question here on China about how much can you trust Chinese accounting standards?
How much can you trust anybody's accounting standards? America, Singapore, Germany, what? I mean, no, you can't trust anybody's accounting. You get a certified CPA putting a statement on there. It doesn't mean it's accurate. My goodness, haven't we learned that in the past 30 years? You have to do a lot more work than just what you see in the financial statements. I wish it were easy to get rich in the investment business. It's not. You've got to do a lot of work.
So all the criticisms, all the comments, especially from the West, about how untrustworthy those data out of China, for instance, maybe...
I didn't say they were trustworthy. I'm saying it takes a whole lot of work. But where is it trustworthy? Do you see what's happened in the United States? And look at the American financial system in the past 3 years alone. Nearly every one of those banks has phony accounting. We now know it. Some people knew it before there was phony accounting. What are you talking about? Do you trust them? Of course, I don't trust anybody's financial statements. But it doesn't matter whether you're Chinese or Arab or American. The statements you have to check.
All righty. One more question. The outlook for the outlook on the proposal of China's one world currency, what would govern the worth of such a currency, in your opinion?
Well, now that's an extremely good question. I don't think that the special drawing rights which the Chinese have proposed will work, because that's a very artificial currency. You've got to have it against something of some kind of value. Some people have proposed a commodities basket. Some have proposed gold. I don't think gold would work. But the world does have a problem. We have a very serious problem with the U.S. dollar, and something's got to replace it. And the Chinese and the Russians and a lot of other people are saying, what are we going to do? And just ignoring it is going to be a disaster for all of us.
You know, you suggested buying airlines at some point in time. You said buy airlines when oil peaked and the crisis started. Do you still think they're a good buy?
Well, I still own my airlines. They're all down here with the flu crisis, as you may know, but I own them. I still think that that's going to be one of the best stock sectors coming out of all of this.
We've been talking about Japan. I mean, the Ozawa resignation, what does it mean for the political landscape in the country?
Well, it probably means that the opposition is going to have a harder time, but who knows? The people in power are not very popular either. Should we buy Japan? I don't know. I'd rather own Japan than the U.S. at this point. The Japanese market's been down for 19 years, so it's closer to the bottom than it was 19 years ago. I do own a few Japanese shares. I own the currency. But other than that, I don't see much reason to invest in Japan.
Are you surprised by some of the optimism about the Japanese economy? There's been a turnaround in sentiment.
Well, yes, that's because all this money is being created. The whole world's being flooded with money. And listen, if you give me $5 trillion, I'll show you a wonderful time. And that's what's happening. They're all, spending all this money, and it makes everything look better for a while. But in my view, it's probably temporary. At best, we're going to have a long period like this in Japan and elsewhere. But if I had to own the U.S. or Japan, I would rather own Japan.
Okay, Jim, I want to turn to emerging markets at this point in time, Russia in particular. We have an email from a viewer who says, do you see Russia on the brink of a major political economic crisis, or have they averted a disaster by throwing dollar reserves at the problem?
Well, Russia, in my view, is going to be an ongoing disaster, which is going to turn into a catastrophe. It's going to continue to disintegrate. It has been. Putin has some power, at least in Moscow and Petersburg and a few places, but the centrifugal forces of the dissolution of that empire are going to continue. Most people are not paying any attention to Moscow. They don't want to pay attention to Moscow. The country